The stepmother, cold and manipulative, turned every mistake of her stepdaughter into punishment. Upon discovering that the homework wasn't done, she lost her temper and decided to humiliate her. She ordered the girl to eat the dog food. At the exact moment the bowl touched the table, the millionaire father arrived and caught the scene. 2 minutes later, his action changed everything, and the stepmother's regret was inevitable. The imported marble floor of the Sterling estate felt cold beneath Leah's bare feet, even through her thin socks. At 8 years old, she had already learned that silence in this house wasn't peace. It was a blank canvas where any wrong sound could become an unforgivable smudge. It was an expensive quiet, maintained by groundskeepers who trimmed the hedges without a whisper and staff who moved like shadows. That silence was part of her father, Rob's immense fortune, a man whose love was as great as his absence, swallowed by investment meetings and phone calls that decided the future of his vast assets. Leah understood only the snippets of finance she overheard. Words like dividends, stock options, and quarterly earnings were the names of the ghosts that kept her father away. Her only confidant inside those walls was Winston, a soft-furred, honey-eyed golden retriever who seemed to understand the weight of the secret she whispered into his ear. For him, Leah didn't have to be perfect. She just had to be the girl who scratched his belly and shared in secret the crust of her bread. That sweltering Monday afternoon, the front door clicked shut softly, and Leah brought with her a gust of the outside world, a world of kids' laughter, chalk art on the sidewalk, and the urgency of a fourth-grade science project. In her hands, she clutched a carefully rolled poster board and a paper bag filled with twigs, dried leaves, and a chunk of styrofoam. It was a diorama of the water cycle, and her heart thumped with a mix of panic and hope. She needed adult help, a hot glue gun, and someone to calmly read the directions. Her father wouldn't be home until late, but Savannah, her stepmother, was on the veranda, sipping iced tea with 2 neighbors. The image was flawless, the afternoon sun gilding her perfectly styled hair, her laughter restrained, the posture of someone born to occupy that space. Leah took a deep breath, rehearsing her request. Being invisible was safe, but her grade depended on her courage. She approached slowly, feeling the other women's eyes measuring her school uniform, her shoes, the way she held the poster board. "Excuse me, Savannah," she murmured, her voice lower than she intended. Savannah turned, her face lighting up with a practiced smile, a flicker of benevolence that never quite reached her eyes. "Well, darling, what have we here?" The neighbors smiled, complicit in this scene of perfect domesticity. Leah explained the project with the water cycle and her need for help. Savannah's smile widened. "Why, of course, my love. What an intelligent, dedicated girl. After dinner, we will sit together and make the best diorama this school has ever seen. A Sterling always needs to excel, doesn't she?" The neighbors sighed, enchanted. One commented on how Savannah was such an exemplary mother, balancing her social life with raising a child. A sliver of hope warmed Leah's chest. Maybe this time it would be different. That evening, however, as the scent of jasmine from the garden drifted into the dining room and the last rays of sun disappeared, Savannah's promise began to unravel. As soon as the china was cleared, she led Leah not to the study table, but to the laundry room. "Before our project, darling, we must tend to our responsibilities. A house like this demands organization." On the utility counter, a mountain of high thread count sheets and towels waited. "Fold all of this perfectly, corners aligned." Next, she pointed to the corridor shelf, where leather-bound art books formed a disordered rainbow. "Organize them by color, from lightest to darkest. Visual harmony is paramount." Finally, she handed her Winston's bowl. "Our friend needs dinner." The tasks piled up, each one a brick in the wall separating her from her project. The hours dragged, and the clock's tick-tock seemed to mock her slowness. She fought the heavy exhaustion, but her body gave way, and her head slumped onto her open notebook, her cheek creased against a blank page, dreaming of cotton clouds that never turned to rain. The promise of help had become a silent trap. The first pale, grey light of morning filtered through the kitchen window, finding Leah exactly where sleep had defeated her. She woke with a jolt, her neck aching and her cheek marked by the notebook's spiral wire. For a moment, confusion protected her from reality, but then her eyes focused on the untouched poster board and the dry twigs. The project, the undone diorama. A cold knot formed in her stomach, as heavy as the bronze statues guarding the yard. The silence of the house now felt accusatory. She stood up, her small muscles protesting, and saw Savannah standing near the wolf range, already dressed in an elegant silk robe. Beside her, on the granite counter, was Winston's stainless steel bowl, filled to the brim with kibble. The strong, earthy smell mingled with the sweet aroma of Savannah's artisanal coffee. Savannah did not look at her immediately. She continued to stir her drink with a silver spoon, the gentle clink of metal against porcelain sounding like a countdown. Finally, she raised her eyes, and the smile from the night before had vanished, replaced by an expression of sweet disappointment. "Good morning, dear. I see fatigue conquered responsibility." She picked up Winston's bowl, the metal gleaming under the kitchen lights. She walked slowly toward Leah, each step measured, the sound of her velvet slippers muffled by the marble. Leah recoiled instinctively, her heart hammering against her ribs. She wanted to explain, to talk about the mountain of folding, the books, the sleep that stole her time. But the words died in her throat. Savannah knelt, leveling their eyes, and whispered, her voice a sharp velvet, almost affectionate. "A child who shirks her duties eats what's left over." A wave of sheer terror and humiliation left Leah breathless. This wasn't a lesson, it was a sentence. At that exact moment, the sound of hurried steps echoed down the hall. Robert Eyre, already in a bespoke suit and tie, strode into the kitchen looking for his leather portfolio. "Morning, my loves." His voice was full of the kinetic energy of a man commanding major deals. He kissed the top of Leah's head and gave Savannah a brief peck. His eyes, however, were distant, focused on the day's challenges, on dividend spreadsheets and the current stock market ticker. He noticed his daughter's distraught expression. "What is it, princess? Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed?" Before Leah could even think of answering, Savannah stepped in, the picture of measured compassion. "She's just a little frustrated because she didn't finish a school assignment. Isn't that right, sweetie? But we are learning that every choice has a consequence. That's how we build character." Robert nodded, satisfied with the response. "That's right. Discipline is everything." He found his portfolio. "I have to run. The country club gala is tomorrow, and I need to polish my keynote speech. Discussing the importance of philanthropy for our society requires serious preparation." He left in a gust of expensive cologne and concerns over his public image. Leah remained paralyzed, the bowl still dangerously close to her face. Across the kitchen, Elena, the housekeeper, was sweeping the floor in silence. She was a woman of few words and eyes that saw everything. Elena didn't dare intervene. Her job was far too precious, but her gaze met Leah's for a second. And in that brief instant, the girl saw an ocean of compassion. It was enough for the tears she held back so fiercely to begin to burn her eyes. Savannah, noticing the silent witness, smiled and put the bowl down. "It was just so you understood, dear. Now, go get ready. We don't want you to be late." At school, shame was her constant companion. Mrs. Albright, her gentle teacher, noticed the unfinished project and the sadness in her eyes. Without making a fuss, she slipped a folded note into Leah's notebook. "Please hand this to your parents. I would like to speak with them." Returning home, the weight of failure crushed her. As she unpacked her backpack on the living room rug, Savannah approached, offering to help. With nimble fingers, she flipped through the notebooks and found the note. Her eyes scanned the lines quickly, and an almost imperceptible smile, cold and calculating, curved her lips. Savannah smoothed Ms. Albright's note with the tip of her fingers, the thin, fragile paper contrasting with the hardness of her intent. She didn't tear it or throw it away. Instead, she positioned it on the mahogany coffee table next to a hardback art book and took a picture with her cell phone. The angle was perfect, the soft room light highlighting the teacher's worried script. With the image saved in a secret folder called Family Assets, the note transformed from a request for help into a piece of evidence, proof, if needed, of Leah's distraction and lack of focus. A narrative she could weave to protect her image and consolidate her control over the vast Sterling estate. She stood and went to Leah, who was still sitting on the floor, the note now absent from her notebook. Savannah knelt, her expensive perfume enveloping the girl in an olfactory embrace. "Darling," she said, her voice a silken whisper, "I found this. Why didn't you give it to me?" Leah shrugged, her face burning with shame. "I forgot." The lie was weak, but the truth was too complex for an 8-year-old to articulate. How could she explain that handing the note to Savannah felt as dangerous as not handing it over? Savannah sighed, a sound of infinite patience. "I understand. You were afraid of my reaction, weren't you? But I only want what's best for you. Miss Albright is worried, and now I am too." She stroked Leah's hair. "Your father has a very important keynote speech at the country club gala. He's going to talk about how our family values education and discipline. We can't disappoint him." The mention of her father was like turning a key. Leah looked up, her loyalty to Robert aching in her chest. "To help you concentrate," Savannah continued, her tone now firm but still disguised as care, "you will spend your after-school study period here at home in your father's office. It will be a silent place, perfect for you to finish your project without distractions." The office was a sanctuary for Robert's capital. The walls were lined with dark mahogany and shelves crammed with books on Wall Street trading and asset management. An antique globe displayed the roots of his international business, and on the imposing desk a heavy gold trophy gleamed, an award for his strategic philanthropy. To Leah, the place was cold and intimidating. The rhythmic tick-tock of a grandfather clock was the only sound, marking every second of her solitude. Sitting in the leather chair that was too big for her, her feet swinging far above the Persian rug, she stared at the blank poster board. The teacher's instructions seemed written in another language. How to glue the twigs to look like trees, how to make the styrofoam look like a cloud. The project, which had once felt like an adventure, was now a monument to her failure. The tears came silently, warm drops that stained the polished wood of the desk. Later, while dusting the shelves, Elena, the housekeeper, saw the girl huddled in the chair, despair etched on her face. Elena's heart constricted. She knew that kind of sadness, a quiet pain that finds no voice. She couldn't risk her job with a word of confrontation, but neither could she allow that small soul to dim. She continued her work in silence, but her mind worked fast. When Savannah called Leah for a forced afternoon snack on the veranda, the office was empty for a few minutes. It was all the time Elena needed. With a small pad of post-it notes she kept in her apron pocket, she wrote 2 simple words in her neat handwriting. When Leah returned to her gilded cage, feeling even more defeated, something caught her eye. A small yellow square of paper was stuck to the base of the bronze lamp. Curious, she approached and read the message. It wasn't a solution for her diorama, nor an obvious word of comfort. It was just 2 words, but for a girl who felt utterly alone, they sounded like a secret promise. "I see you." The message on the yellow post-it was a lighthouse in the fog of Leah's loneliness. "I see you." 2 words that offered no solution, but something infinitely more valuable: recognition. For the first time in days, She felt she wasn't fighting alone in that silent mansion where appearances were worth more than truth. She carefully peeled off the paper and tucked it into her uniform pocket, a secret talisman against the cold emanating from Savannah. Elena's presence, once a discreet shadow in the corners of the house, became a point of warmth, a silent ally in hostile territory. The next day, another post-it appeared, this time stuck inside her lunchbox. Water first, then work. It was a simple, almost banal reminder, but for Leah, it was a guide, a small map to navigate the swamp of tasks Savannah created for her. Meanwhile, the preparations for the country club gala consumed the house. Savannah orchestrated every detail with the precision of a general planning a battle. She spent hours on the phone with organizers, florists, and the club committee, her voice a honeyed blend of efficiency and charm. To the outside world, she was the perfect wife, the driving force behind Robert's social success, a woman who managed a great inheritance of responsibilities with grace. The image of the exemplary family was her most important project, and Leah was a crucial piece in that puzzle. Savannah summoned her to the living room, where Robert's speech was spread over the coffee table. "Darling," she said, with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "your father and I thought it would be wonderful if you participated in the speech. Just 2 sentences, about the importance of the discipline you've been learning at home." Leah felt her blood run cold. Speaking in front of all those people, her father's partners, the women who analyzed her on the veranda, seemed like a nightmare. But refusal was not an option. Savannah's look made it clear this was an order disguised as an invitation. The rehearsals were torturous. Savannah corrected every word, every gesture. "Firmer, dear, look at the audience. Smile, but not too much. Show gratitude. People need to see how united our family is." In private, however, the mask dropped, study time continued to be confiscated, and impossible chores multiplied. One afternoon, Savannah asked her to polish Robert's grandfather's collection of sterling silver miniatures, delicate, detailed pieces that required patience and time she didn't have. Her science project remained untouched, a silent accusation on the cold desk in the office. The first crack in Savannah's plan appeared unexpectedly. Elena, the housekeeper, while cleaning the guest room, noticed something strange. The wastebasket beside the desk, which would normally be empty, contained several crumpled drafts. They were Leah's attempts to write her sentences for the speech, but amidst the rehearsed words were drawings, small sketches of Winston, the dog, with thought bubbles. In one, the dog said, "I'm hungry." In another, "Play with me." Elena realized they weren't just drawings. They were whispers from a girl who was transferring her own needs and fears onto her only friend. She noticed how Leah, when feeding Winston, always lingered, her small hand stroking the golden fur, her lips moving in inaudible secrets. The housekeeper understood that the animal was Leah's emotional proxy, the repository of all her worries. That observation settled in Elena's heart, a seed of concern beginning to germinate, preparing her to act when the opportunity arose. The silent alliance between the child and the employee strengthened, an invisible counterpoint to the web of control Savannah was weaving around the house. Thursday morning arrived with a thin, persistent rain that tapped on the veranda awning like impatient fingers. The grey sky seemed to have poured into the mansion, painting everything with a shade of melancholy. For Leah, exhaustion was a fog that made every thought slow, every movement heavy. The sleepless nights, filled with useless chores and the anxiety of the gala rehearsals, had taken their toll. On her small bedroom desk, her handwriting sheet was smudged. A solitary tear or a drop of sweat from the night before had blurred the ink, transforming the carefully drawn letters into a dark blue smear. It was another failure, small and irrefutable. She went downstairs for breakfast with a sinking heart, knowing the smudge would not go unnoticed. Savannah was already in the kitchen, and her gaze fell upon the calligraphy sheet Leah held with a trembling hand. She said nothing at first. She just picked up the sheet, examined it under the light, and sighed, a sound of deep, rehearsed disappointment. "Oh dear, again?" Then a glint of determination arose in her eyes. This wasn't a setback, it was an opportunity. With terrifying calm, she began to organize the kitchen like a theater director arranging his stage. She opened the window overlooking the side garden, exactly where the neighborhood's most persistent busybody usually walked her dog every morning. She picked up Winston's stainless steel bowl, polished it with a cloth until it gleamed like a mirror, and filled it with the strong-smelling kibble. The scene was set. "It seems our talks aren't being sufficient," Savannah said, her voice low and controlled, but loud enough to be heard from the open window. "We need a lesson that is more memorable." She placed the bowl on the table. Leah backed away, terror rising in her throat. Tears welled in her eyes, hot and desperate. "Please, no," she whispered, her voice choked. "I promise I'll try harder. Please don't make me do that." Her plea was met with the smile of someone teaching a universal truth. "I'm not doing this to you, my love. I am doing this for you, for your own good." With a slow, deliberate motion, she picked up the bowl and approached. The smell of the kibble invaded Leah's nostrils, nauseating. The cold metal was inches from her lips. A few yards away, a luxury sedan pulled up sharply in front of the gate. Robert slammed his hand on the steering wheel, frustrated. In his rush for a meeting about a new investment fund, he had forgotten a crucial envelope in his office, contracts representing a significant part of his business. He got out of the car and, instead of announcing his arrival through the front gate, used his key to enter through the side garden access, a shortcut to the office. That's when he heard voices coming from the kitchen, his daughter's pleading voice and his wife's falsely sweet tone. Something made him stop. He hid behind one of the thick, supporting columns of the veranda, his heart suddenly heavy in his chest. And then he saw the whole scene. Savannah, kneeling, her serene smile, his daughter Leah paralyzed, her face bathed in tears, and the dog bowl, the symbol of that silent humiliation, being raised toward the child's lips. The world seemed to stop. Instinct screamed for him to run, to tear his daughter from that situation. But he didn't move. A whirlwind of thoughts paralyzed him. What if it was a misunderstanding? A sick joke? What if the neighbor saw the fight? What if this, filmed on a cell phone and spread through the country club circuit, destroyed his reputation, his philanthropy, the entire edifice of perfection he had built? Cowardly, poisonous doubt chained him to the pillar, transforming him into a statue of pure dread. Robert's paralysis lasted only an instant, but it was enough for doubt to plant deep roots. He backed up a step, the sound of his leather shoes scraping the stone veranda almost inaudible, but to him it sounded like thunder. In the kitchen, the noise made Savannah hesitate, and she quickly pulled the bowl back, the moment of cruelty interrupted. She turned and saw her husband standing there, his face a mask of confusion and conflict. With the agility of a seasoned actress, her expression changed from severity to concern. "Robert, you're back. Did something happen?" She stood up, the bowl now firmly in her hands, as if she were about to feed the dog. "Leah was just being a little stubborn about breakfast. We were discussing the importance of nourishing our bodies." Robert looked from his wife to his daughter. Leah's face was wet with tears, but it was the expression in her eyes that hit him like a punch. It was an old fear, a dread that didn't match a simple morning tantrum. He knew his daughter. She was stubborn, yes, but not like this. This was the fear of someone who already knew the threat, who had been hurt before. He forced a smile, his mind racing. An explosion right there in front of the open window would be disastrous. Savannah's narrative, that of a dedicated stepmother dealing with a difficult child, was too powerful to be undone by a single accusation. He needed more than his instinct. He needed proof. "I forgot some papers," he said, his voice husky. "An important negotiation regarding cryptocurrency. I need to get back to the office." He went inside, grabbed the envelope and left, the normalcy of his gestures belying the storm raging within him. In the car, on the way to the firm, his hands trembled on the steering wheel. He couldn't shake the image of the fear in Leah's eyes. Every forced smile, every rehearsed compliment from Savannah now seemed suspicious. He had trusted her blindly, entrusting her not just with the management of the house, but with the care of his most precious asset. Had he confused control with care, appearance with love? The doubt corroded him. Arriving at his glass and steel empire, he didn't go to his office. He went straight up to the 12th floor, the domain of his IT chief, a tech genius named Marcus, who owed his career and loyalty to Robert. "I need a favor," Robert said, his voice low and urgent. "A personal and absolutely confidential favor. I need cameras installed in my house. Discreet ones, as fast as possible." While Robert's secret plan was set in motion, Savannah sensed the change in the atmosphere. Her husband's brief hesitation, the look he cast at his daughter, none of it went unnoticed. She knew that doubt had been planted. Instead of retreating, she redoubled her strategy of public sweetness. During the speech rehearsal that afternoon, she was the personification of patience, praising Leah for her maturity in front of the housekeeper. "You see, with a little discipline, you can achieve anything," she said, stroking Leah's head. But when they were alone, the psychological games intensified. Leah's colored pencil case mysteriously vanished from her backpack, only to reappear later in Savannah's sock drawer. "You need to be more organized, dear. Your father hates sloppiness. That affects the cash flow of the business." "You know." On another occasion, she set Leah's alarm clock ahead by half an hour and reprimanded her for sleeping in. Successful people wake up early. Think about the compound interest of your time. They were small, almost invisible cruelties, designed to create a pattern of behavior she could use later, the forgetful, disorganized, sleepy child. A dossier of evidence to present to Robert should his suspicions turn into accusations. The mansion, already a stage, had now become a silent battlefield where truth and lies waged an invisible war. The mansion had become a labyrinth of mirrors where every reflection of Leah was distorted by Savannah's will. The proximity of the country club gala intensified the pressure, and the psychological games became the air they breathed. Savannah, under the guise of helping Leah organize her backpack for the next day, flipped through her belongings with a critical eye. "An organized mind reflects a well-managed portfolio," she would say, the phrase sounding absurd to an 8-year-old. The next morning, preparing for school, Leah felt the familiar panic. Her imported wooden pencil case, the one her father brought her back from a trip to Geneva, had disappeared. She searched desperately, time ticking away, the fear of Savannah's disapproval a cold hand on her neck. "Lost something, dear?" the stepmother asked, entering the room with a tray of fruit. "Carelessness is the first step toward failure, in business and in life." The scene unfolded under Elena's watchful eyes. The housekeeper, who was dusting the hallway, saw Leah's frantic search and Savannah's cruel calm. She had already noticed the pattern. An object would vanish, the girl would be blamed for disorganization, and the lesson on discipline would be reinforced. The post-it notes were a balm, but Elena knew they weren't enough. This child needed an anchor, something concrete to hold on to amid the tide of manipulation. The pain in Leah's eyes, when she had to go to school with loose pencils in her backpack, was the final straw. While Savannah was busy on a long video call, discussing the profitability of a charitable fund, Elena began her own silent investigation. She didn't look in the obvious places. She thought like Savannah. Where to hide something to maximize the humiliation? Her instinct led her to the butler's pantry, a room adjacent to the kitchen, rarely used by the family. There, On an antique sideboard rested a solid sterling silver fruit bowl, more decorative than functional, always overflowing with lustrous, exotic fruits. Elena moved the oranges and the bunches of grapes. And there it was, hidden behind the base of the fruit bowl, cold and out of place, Leah's wooden pencil case. The discovery was a silent and terrible confirmation. It wasn't forgetfulness, it was planned malice, an act of emotional sabotage. For a moment, rage boiled in Elena's chest. She wanted to grab the case, march to Savannah, and expose the lie. But what would happen then? Her dismissal would be certain, and Leah would lose her only ally. Savannah's wealth and power protected her. Justice, here, would not work with a direct confrontation. Then, a different idea, quieter and perhaps more powerful, took shape. Elena returned the pencil case to Leah's backpack, but kept the discovery to herself. That afternoon, in her small room at the back of the property, she retrieved a hardcover ledger she used to record her expenses. She tore out the used pages, leaving it with blank sheets. On the first page, in her clear handwriting, she wrote, "Thursday, task assigned, polishing silver miniatures. Time available, 30 mins. Obstacle, pencil case missing, found by me behind the fruit bowl." It was a simple, factual, unemotional record, but it was the truth. That night, when she went to tidy Leah's room for bed, she left the ledger under the girl's pillow, along with a small pencil. There was no note, no explanation. The object spoke for itself. It was more than a diary. It was a weapon, a piece of evidence, an invitation for Leah, the girl who saw everything, to start recording what she saw. The silent war was about to gain a new chapter, one that would be written line by the victim herself. As Leah slid her hand under the pillow, her fingers met the smooth, hard cover of the ledger. The initial surprise gave way to a slow, profound understanding. There was no note, but the message was clearer than any post-it. This ledger was a vault, a place to keep the truths no one else saw. The small pencil, left beside it, was the key. That night, under the dim light of her desk lamp, Leah opened the book. In her childish but precise handwriting, she recorded the incident of the pencil case, adding the detail Elena couldn't have known. "Savannah smiled when I couldn't find it." The act of writing was transformative. The words on the page gave shape and weight to her anguish, turning the fog of fear into something solid, real, documented. She felt a spark of power, the fragile flame of resistance. In the days that followed, the ledger became her constant companion, hidden deep in her backpack. Savannah, sensing a new, subtle barrier in Leah, intensified her campaign. One morning, the alarm clock rang in what seemed like the middle of the night. Darkness still covered the garden. Confused, Leah dressed and went downstairs, finding Savannah in the kitchen, a book on investment fund management open on the table. 45 minutes ahead of schedule, Savannah said, looking at the wall clock. "Your inattention is affecting even your sleep. People who build great fortunes don't waste the dawn." Leah knew, with a certainty that hurt, that she hadn't made a mistake, but how could she prove it? That night in her ledger she wrote, "Saturday. Alarm went off 45 minutes early. Savannah said I made a mistake, but I didn't." The silent alliance between Leah and Elena deepened. A glance exchanged in the hallway, a slight nod when Elena saw the girl writing in her hiding spot in the garden. They were small gestures, yet loaded with meaning. However, this complicity did not go unnoticed by Savannah. Her eyes, trained to detect the slightest imperfection in her facade of perfection, began to follow Elena. She noticed the way the housekeeper arranged Leah's pillow with extra care, how her gaze lingered on the girl with an almost maternal concern. She didn't yet know about the ledger, but she felt the interference, an undercurrent of kindness that undermined her authority. Meanwhile, miles away, in the aseptic silence of his office tower, Robert was living a double life. By day, he was the ruthless multimillionaire, moving capital, analyzing the stock market, and ensuring the growth of his empire. By night, he became a spectator of his own tragedy. On one screen, he saw stock charts and gold futures. On the other, he saw the grainy images from the micro cameras installed throughout his house. He saw Leah being reprimanded for leaving a book an inch out of place. He saw Savannah find the pencil case in Leah's backpack and scold her for her dishonesty in hiding it. They were pinpricks, subtle cruelties that, in isolation, could be explained away as rigorous discipline. He still lacked the undeniable proof, the scene that would leave no room for interpretation. The agony of watching, helpless, was eating away at him, but he clung to his plan. The patience that had made him a billionaire was now his tool to save his daughter. The breaking point was approaching. One afternoon, while Eleanor was polishing silverware in the pantry, Savannah entered, the silence preceding her more threatening than any scream. She picked up a candelabra, inspected it for smudges, and then looked directly at Eleanor. "You know, Eleanor," she began, her voice casual, after the big country club event, "I'm thinking of making some changes to the staff, optimizing human resources, ensuring everyone here is fully aligned with this family's values and needs." The threat hung in the air, cold and sharp as polished silver. It wasn't an accusation, but a warning. Elena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her job, her security, and worst of all, her ability to protect Leah were now at stake. Savannah's threat hovered over Elena like a storm cloud, silent and heavy. Every sweep of the broom, every polished surface was now a reminder of her precariousness. Losing her job was a real and immediate fear, but the thought of leaving Leah alone in that house, unprotected, was an agony that stole her sleep. She watched the girl from afar, seeing her take refuge in the ledger with a heartbreaking dedication. That small book was Leah's only shield, and Elena feared that, without her watchful presence, even that shield could be ripped away. The housekeeper redoubled her discretion, moving through the mansion with the lightness of a ghost, her face a mask of neutrality that hid the storm of concern and the weight of her impotence. Savannah's power, built upon Robert's immense assets, seemed an impregnable fortress. Hundreds of miles away, in a luxury hotel in another city, Robert was finalizing a negotiation that would add a few more million to his already vast portfolio. He shook hands, smiled, and spoke about the promising future of the tech market with impeccable conviction. But as soon as the door to his suite closed, the billionaire's facade crumbled. He sat down in front of his laptop, the screen split in two. On one side, the cash flow of his companies, on the other, a grid of images from his own home. With his heart in his throat, he opened the recording from the previous night. At first, everything was normal. Leah doing homework in the kitchen, Savannah reading a magazine. Then, the incident. Leah, getting up for a glass of water, bumped the table and spilled a tiny puddle on the floor. Savannah's reaction was instantaneous and terrifyingly familiar. The kitchen camera, discreetly positioned inside a smoke detector, captured everything. The voice was inaudible, but the images spoke louder than any sound. Robert saw Savannah stand up, the smile gone. He saw her grab Winston's bowl, which was on the floor, and fill it with kibble. He saw the terror on Leah's face, the instinctive recoil, the shaking of her head in pleading, and then he saw his wife kneel, hold the bowl and bring it close to his daughter's face, her lips moving in words he couldn't hear but could imagine. "Just so you learn your lesson." The metal gleamed under the light, inches from his girl's face. The air seemed to be sucked from Robert's lungs. It was real, worse than he imagined. But the next scene was what broke him. After a few seconds of silent torture, Savannah pulled the bowl back, smiled, and picked up her cell phone. She pulled Leah close, adjusted a lock of hair on the girl's still frightened face, and snapped a selfie. The flash illuminated the grotesque scene. Savannah's radiant smile, Leah's fragile attempt at a grin, the tears still glistening in her eyes. The caption, he knew, would be something like, "Late-night study session with my princess, the greatest asset of all." The duality, the cruelty followed by the fabrication of public happiness was the final, irrefutable proof. Robert closed the laptop with a dull thud. His hands trembled, not with rage, but with profound pain and overwhelming guilt. He didn't explode. The hot anger gave way to a glacial cold. Doubt had died. In its place, a purpose was born. He wasn't just going to intervene. He was going to dismantle that farce, piece by piece, in front of the very audience Savannah worked so hard to perform for. The week of the country club gala descended upon the mansion like a velvet curtain, muffling the sounds of real life and amplifying the performance. Boxes from designer stores arrived in a constant stream, bringing dresses that whispered promises of elegance and shoes that looked like delicate sculptures. The air smelled of beeswax and polished silver. Savannah was at the center of everything, a maestro conducting a symphony of appearances. She floated through the rooms, the phone pressed to her ear, discussing table placements and orchid colors with a passion she reserved only for building her public image. For her, this gala wasn't just a charity event. It was the crowning of her status, the solidification of her place as the impeccable wife of one of the city's wealthiest men, a multi-millionaire whose fortune was as respected as it was envied. Leah watched it all from a distance, small and invisible amidst the hurricane of preparations, the weight of the 2 sentences she would have to recite on stage growing heavier each day. Robert returned on Tuesday night. The sound of his car on the gravel driveway was the signal for the play to begin. Savannah greeted him at the door with a carefully staged kiss and a radiant smile. "My love, we missed you so much. Was your trip a success? Is the company capital secure?" Robert forced a smile, the gesture feeling foreign on his own face. "It was productive. We closed an excellent deal." He hugged his wife, but his body was rigid. The memory of the camera footage, a film of ice in his veins. His eyes searched for Leah, who was standing at the top of the stairs. He went up, and when he knelt to hug her, something in his touch was different. It was firmer, more present, as if he were making sure she was real, that she was safe. "How are you, princess?" he whispered, his voice lower than normal. Leah just nodded, unable to decipher the new, deep sadness in her father's eyes. That night, under the pretext of reviewing the speech sentences with his daughter, Robert called her into the office. Savannah, satisfied with the display of paternal interest, left them alone. The door closed, and for the first time in a long time, father and daughter were truly by themselves. He didn't talk about the speech. Instead, he sat next to her on the small sofa and pointed to her backpack. "I saw you writing in a little notebook in the garden the other day. It looked important." Leah froze, the instinct to protect her secret warring with the trust the new look in her father's eyes inspired. "It's just a journal," she murmured. Robert nodded slowly. "I know things have been difficult, and I haven't been here as I should have been. If I could read what you wrote, maybe I could understand better. I promise it will be our secret. A secret kept under lock and key, like the password to a Bitcoin wallet." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable. With trembling hands, Leah took the ledger and handed it to him. Hours later, the house was plunged into darkness and silence. Only the light from Robert's office cut through the night. On his desk, the laptop displayed the silent recordings, a cold, visual truth. Beside it lay the ledger, a written truth, full of pain and resistance. He took a deep breath and opened to the first page. Elena's handwriting, clean and precise, jumped out at him. Thursday, task assigned, polishing silver miniatures. Time available, 30 mins, obstacle, pencil case missing, found by me behind the fruit bowl. He turned the page and saw Leah's writing, shaky but determined, which added the final blow. Savannah smiled when I couldn't find it. He continued to flip through, each entry a new stab. The alarm clock, the stolen study time, the swapped book. They weren't isolated incidents. It was a pattern, a systematic campaign of psychological torture. The silence of the images now had a voice, and it screamed. The night before, the country club gala was long and sleepless for Robert. The weight of Leah's ledger in his hands was heavier than all his stock market holdings combined. Every written word was a testament to his absence, an echo of his negligence. The fortune he built, brick by brick, dollar by dollar, now seemed like a bad joke, a mountain of gold that failed to protect his daughter from the silent suffering happening under his own roof. The image of perfection that he and Savannah projected to the world was a farce, a hollow shell, and he was as guilty as she was for sustaining it. But guilt, he decided, would not be an anchor, it would be fuel. In the early morning hours, while the city slept, he mapped out his plan, not as a wounded father, but as the ruthless strategist he was in the business world. Every step was calculated, every contingency considered. The truth would not merely be revealed, it would be presented in an uncontestable way. The night of the event arrived, shrouded in a golden glow. The Greenwich Country Club ballroom exuded the perfume of jasmine and money. The women paraded in silk gowns, their jewels catching the amber light of the crystal chandeliers. The men, in their immaculate tuxedos, spoke of interest rates, dividends, and the cryptocurrency market, their voices a hum of power and influence. Savannah was in her element, navigating the ballroom with the grace of a queen, receiving compliments on her elegance and the marvelous job she did with the family. She held Leah's hand, who was dressed in a blue velvet dress, feeling like a doll in a shop window. Her smile was fragile, her eyes wide and scared, searching for her father in the crowd. Robert maintained a calm facade, shaking hands, smiling, briefly discussing the rise of the euro. But his eyes were alert, waiting for the right moment. The opportunity arose when, in the entrance hall, he saw Ms. Albright, the teacher. She looked out of place amid so much luxury. Her presence there was an act of courage and concern. She had used the general invitation sent to the school to try, one last time, to speak with Leah's parents. With a polite pretext, Robert excused himself from a group of partners and approached her. "Mrs. Albright, good to see you here." The teacher, surprised and relieved, got straight to the point, her voice low and tactful. "Mr. Sterling, I sent a few notes. I was concerned about Leah's science project and the difficulty she seemed to be facing. She's such a bright girl, but she looked so exhausted." Robert listened, his face serious, nodding. "I did not receive those notes," he said, the sentence carrying a meaning only he understood. "But I thank you, more than you know, for your concern. Everything will make sense soon." The Master of Ceremonies announced the main keynote speaker of the night. Robert took the stage to a wave of applause. The lights focused on him. In the corner of the stage, a large screen, normally used to display sponsor logos, was discreetly positioned. Savannah, seated in the front row, smiled, her face radiant with pride. Leah, beside her, wrung her sweaty hands in her lap. Robert approached the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the audience. "Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here to speak about philanthropy, about the importance of caring for our neighbors, of building a better world, and the foundation of all this." He paused, his gaze meeting Savannah's. "Is family, a united family, based on truth, discipline, and, above all, love." Savannah smiled even wider, the personification of the perfect wife. Then Robert gave a discreet signal to the AV technician, and on the side screen, the images began to play. On the side screen, the images began to play. There was no sound, just the cold, grainy truth captured by a hidden lens. The first scene was the kitchen. the morning light, Savannah's elegant figure, and Leah's shrinking body. The audience watched in silence as the image showed Savannah lifting Winston's bowl, the metal gleaming, and bringing it close to the face of the crying child. There was a murmur of confusion in the audience. Was this a strange scene from a home video? Then, the image shifted to a high-resolution photograph of a notebook page, an adult's handwriting, clear and objective, and below, the shaky script of a child. The words, "pencil case missing" and "Savannah smiled" were perfectly legible. The sound of glassware stopped. The buzz of conversations about stocks and profitability died. A dense, heavy silence fell over the ballroom. Savannah's smile froze, then cracked like fine china. The color drained from her face, leaving behind the flawless makeup over a mask of panic. Then, the screen returned to moving images. The second scene, even more devastating, showed Savannah, moments after her threat, pulling Leah into a selfie, forcing a smile onto the girl's tear-stained face. The contrast between the silent cruelty and the happiness fabricated for social media was a punch to the gut for the city's elite. The audience, who loved a spectacle, were getting one, but it wasn't what they expected. It was raw, real, and terribly uncomfortable. Breaking the silence, Savannah's voice rang out, high and trembling. "This is preposterous. It was a joke. The bowl was empty. We were just staging a lesson about gratitude. It's an educational enactment." Her words echoed in the ballroom, desperate, pleading for the illusion to be stronger than the reality projected on the screen. But no one moved. No one supported her. All eyes were on Robert. He did not raise his voice. There was no anger on his face, only a calm of steel. He spoke into the microphone with the same controlled tone he used to announce the acquisition of a new business or the sale of millions in assets. "In this household," he began, his voice resonating with unquestionable authority, "the only investment that truly matters is my daughter's well-being. And the most valuable asset we possess is the truth." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "Therefore, as of this evening, some immediate measures will be taken." The audience held its breath. "First, the immediate removal of Mrs. Savannah Sterling from our home. Second, the freezing of her access to the management of our family assets. The cash flow that supported her image is, as of now, closed." Every word was a blow. "Third, therapy and all necessary support for my daughter's recovery. And fourth, a complete internal investigation into any coercive conduct toward the employees of this home." A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. It was more than a scandal. It was a paradigm shift. In a culture where appearance was everything, where problems were hidden behind high gates and generous donations, the wealthiest man in the room was tearing away the veil, showing the rot within. He was sacrificing his perfect family image for something much more real. Savannah stared at him, humiliation burning on her face. For a second she looked broken, but then, amid the ruin of her reputation, something shifted in her eyes. The pleading disappeared, replaced by a cold glint of fury and calculation. She wasn't defeated. She was just beginning to fight. The public humiliation was not the end of the battle, but only the beginning of a new tactic. Savannah, expelled from the estate and with her sources of capital frozen, did not surrender. She barricaded herself in a luxury hotel, transforming her room into a headquarters for a war of narratives. She activated her network of contacts, the same partners and philanthropists' wives she smiled at the club. With the skill of a master manipulator, she presented her counterattack, a fabricated dossier. These were printed text messages and emails, allegedly from Ms. Albright, criticizing Leah's emotional instability and tendency toward fantasy. The narrative was cruel and calculated. Robert E., crushed by the pressure of managing his immense fortune, must have had a breakdown, manipulating his daughter to create a public drama and get rid of an inconvenient wife. The seed of doubt, which Savannah was so adept at cultivating, was cast once more, and the world that lived by appearances hesitated. After all, a scandal was bad for business. But Robert was prepared. The patience that made him a billionaire in the volatile stock market had taught him to anticipate his opponent's moves. He called a private meeting in his office, not with the press, but with two influential partners who were beginning to question him. For this meeting, he summoned two witnesses, Ms. Albright, nervous but determined, and Marcus, his IT chief. Savannah was invited to present her proof. She did so with the confidence of someone who believes her own lie. Then Marcus, calmly and methodically, projected Savannah's printed evidence onto a screen and, next to it, the original files of the notes she had photographed weeks earlier. He demonstrated, without technical jargon, how the words had been digitally cropped and pasted to create sentences that never existed. Ms. Albright, in turn, presented her own cell phone, showing the history of her real communications. Gentle, worried messages unanswered. The fraud was exposed unequivocally. The counterattack attempt had failed spectacularly. The victory, however, had its price. One of the partners, averse to any kind of scandal, withdrew his participation in a high-risk investment fund. Robert lost a multi-million-dollar contract, a small scratch on his vast wealth, but a reminder that no truth comes without cost. While the dust settled in the business world, a new order began to establish itself inside the mansion. Robert called Elena to his office and, with a gratitude that left her speechless, not only guaranteed her job, but promoted her to house manager, tasked with coordinating the household routine with a new focus: Leah's well-being. Elena's post-it notes, transformed into beautiful colored cards with realistic chores, breaks for play, and rewards, a system Leah already knew and loved. In parallel, Leah, with her father's and Ms. Albright's help, resumed her science project. Humiliation was transformed into innovation. Together, they built a working prototype of an automatic pet feeder. The small device, made of cardboard, glue, and a simple clock mechanism, emitted a recorded voice message from Leah. "Homework first, then treat time for my friend." The project earned an A, but its true value was symbolic, a tool for healthy boundaries, not humiliation. Still, the final catharsis was missing. One silent evening, days after the event, Leah walked into the kitchen for water and saw Winston's bowl on the floor. She stopped, the memory of the cold metal and the smell of kibble making her shudder. She bent down and held the bowl with both hands, feeling the weight of the fear it represented. Robert, watching her from the hallway, approached quietly and knelt beside her. He didn't tell her to drop the bowl. Instead, he placed his large, warm hands over hers. "I am so sorry," he whispered, his voice choked. "I am sorry I didn't see." With a gentle gesture, he took the bowl from her hands and placed it back on the floor next to the dog. "This belongs to our friend, not to a child," he said, looking into her eyes. "In this house, no one will ever confuse love with shame again." For the first time, Leah cried without hiding, a deep, liberating cry, and her father held her without hurry, time stopping in that embrace that promised not a magic solution, but the most valuable thing of all, presence. Savannah's final defeat was not a bang, but an echo that faded away. Her last card was a desperate attempt to appeal to the oldest rule in that universe: appearances. She showed up at the mansion gate, dressed with sober elegance, and asked to speak with Robert. Facing the security guards and the intercom cameras, she argued that the public removal tarnished the husband's image and hurt the family business, an asset she had, after all, helped to build. It was a cunning move, an appeal to the cold logic of capital over the disorder of emotions. But Robert, now guided by a new set of values, did not waver. On the other end of the line, his voice was calm but inflexible. He reminded her of the rules he himself had publicly established on stage: respect, security, and transparency. Her entry violated all three. He denied access and, in the following days, formalized the separation with a strict protection clause, ensuring that neither Leah nor the employees were ever again subjected to her influence. The country club, always zealous about its own image, discreetly removed her from its committees. The neighborhood gossip, which had previously elevated her as an icon, now devoured her, turning her into a cautionary tale whispered at Sunday brunches. Inside the mansion walls, the atmosphere changed. The oppressive silence was replaced by a serene quietness. The sunlight, once cold on the marble, now seemed warmer, heating Leah's drawings that began to adorn the refrigerator door. Robert's office, once a fortress of business and euro figures, became a place where Leah did her homework, her bare feet resting on the Persian rug while her father reviewed contracts. The smell of strong coffee now mixed with that of crayons. The garden, which once seemed like an untouchable display case of perfection, became a space for life. Robert instituted weekend breakfast on the veranda, where laughter mixed with the birdsong. Winston, the golden retriever, lay with his ears on Leah's feet. His body relaxed in a state of pure trust and regained safety. Every sensory detail confirmed the change. The smell of orange cake baking in the kitchen, the sound of Elena's voice singing softly as she watered the plants, the touch of her father's hand on Leah's shoulder as they read a book together. The true conclusion, the one that would seal the new promise, came on a Sunday afternoon. The sun was setting, tinging the sky orange and pink. Father and daughter walked through the garden, holding hands. Robert stopped and took a small velvet box from his pocket. It wasn't an expensive jewel, a symbol of his immense wealth. Inside, on the satin lining, lay a single, small silver dessert spoon with a delicate blue ribbon tied to the handle. He handed it to Leah. "This is for you," he said, his voice soft. "It's to remind you that only what nurtures your soul belongs in this house. No one will ever try to feed you shame again." Leah took the spoon, the metal cool and solid in her hand. It was more than an object. It was a symbol, a contract, the tangible promise of a love that finally valued more than any appearance. She didn't need to say anything. Her smile, genuine and radiant, was the answer. That night, she placed the spoon in a music box beside her bed, her new treasure. The journey had been painful, a crossing through a desert of silent fear and humiliation. But born of courage, exposure, and loss, a new emotional landscape had emerged. The certainty that in that house, love would no longer be mistaken for discipline, and the most valuable sound would not be the clinking of gold coins, but the laughter of a child who finally felt safe.